Hello and welcome to the Infinity Saga and Beyond an MCU fan podcast. My name is Jordan, and with me, as always, discussing Agatha All Along is Casey McGeorge.
Oh, how's it going, everybody?
It's going good. We have reached the end of our 7 week journey, 9 episodes
We have traveled
of
down the road.
Agatha. Yeah, there you go. We have reached the end of the road. Um, we have, of course, discussing episodes 8 and 9 of Agatha All Along. Episode 8 called Follow Me, My Friend, to Glory at the End, directed by Ganja Montero, written by Peter Cameron. The synopsis of that was simply the end of the road. And then 9, Maiden Mother Crone, also directed by Ganja Montero, written by Jack Schaefer and Laura Donnie. And this synopsis was The Truth of Agatha Harkness and the Witch's Road. And these premiered October 30th, 2024 on Disney Plus. So I watched it the night of. I'm not sure if you got around to it the night of, but
I did.
what was you did? Okay.
It was yeah. It was a long night as we were just talking about delivering mail and all the election mail and all the crap that goes with that. And I got back and I wanted to wait, but you had texted me once that day and was like, "Oh, you should at least watch 8." And like I told you, it's all or nothing with me. So I was
Right.
like, "All right." It was by the time I got home, it was like 8 o'clock. So by the time I took a shower, I was like, all right, I can still, I can still make this and get a decent amount of sleep. Like there's some things I gotta do, but I can still do this, right? Okay, cool. Also, was it Wednesday? Yeah, that day I finally caught up on all the podcasts I had not listened to
Nice.
from my 2 week vacation, right? So I have this massive list of podcasts. This will tie in with Agatha. Just follow me for a second. So I have a bunch of podcasts I listen to: sports related, wrestling, one or two, entertainment, and long form and true crime stuff, all kinds of things, right? And while I was on vacation for 2 weeks, the only thing I listened to every day were two shows I listened to. I used to watch a lot. Is ESPN's Around the Horn and Pardon the Interruption. Mainly because like I don't want to listen to those from 2 weeks
Weeks
before
later.
about
Yeah.
yeah, hey, this is what happened in the NFL, this is what happened on opening night of the NBA, right? Like I can't listen to that 2 weeks later. Right? So I listened to those and that's like 45, 50 minutes or so each day. And while I was here on vacation, I was playing video games and I would, like I play NCAA football and I could listen to those each day. Cool, take it out. But at one point, I think I was up to like 40 some odd hours of podcasts that I had to listen to when I went back to work. Now, uh, an hour commute home and an hour commute back, right? And then while I'm at work, between 6 and 7, maybe up to 8 or 9 hours a day. Sounds like you could just knock that out in a couple of days. But there's also stuff I'm listening to every day. Some are anywhere between 30 and 40 minutes. Some are like an hour and a half, 2 hours. So I might be knocking out like 5 or 6 hours a day, right? But then I'm also getting like 2 or 3 hours a day more in podcasts. And then same thing, like every day, as soon as the Round the Horn and Pardon the Interruption come up, I would download those and listen to those every day and just kind of push everything else down the list. So it took 2.5 weeks for me to catch up, right? So Wednesday I caught up, and then finally I was like, oh man, it's Wednesday, caught up, cool. Oh, you know what? I haven't listened to some music in a while. You know what? It's Wednesday. It's the finale of Agatha. I'm gonna listen to Down the Witch's Road, the ballad, right? This was Wednesday afternoon, like 1 or 2 o'clock in the afternoon, when I decided to do this. I didn't know. This is where it all ties in. I didn't know that song was going to have such a huge impact on those episodes that night. Like it was one of those prophetic things where it was like I was just like, oh, let me listen to this, and then I got into it and I rewinded a couple times, and then when I get home and watch it, I was like, oh wow, that was weird. And I probably wasted everybody's 2 minutes with that, but yeah.
Yeah, this is it did play such a big role into it, and now we also have, like, obviously the titles of each of these episodes have been lines from the song, and it just makes even more, like, it hits, I feel like, even more than it hit before. Um because of the revelations that we learn in these two episodes. And the reason I was telling you, like, at least episode 8, is because I felt like that was going to get spoiled. I don't know if you would have ended up getting spoiled on it, but there's a pretty big reveal at the end of episode 8, obviously, that we'll talk about.
I was very lucky, and I managed to stay off of Twitter until I watched both episodes. Um, and honestly, that was my plan. Like I know I could have went in there and tried to mute stuff, but I didn't feel like
Yeah.
trying to fiddle with settings, and then maybe would have forgot. So I was just like, okay, let me just. I can I can stay off it. Like I have the willpower, and I did. And then yeah,
Yeah, so I guess let's dive in here. So we get to the last trial, right? Um Before we do that, we do have Alice kind of kicks off the episode in episode 8, her spirit waking up and sees her dead body, and um Rio, kind of leads her to the afterlife. I thought that was interesting because uh, I don't know if it actually felt needed. Like, I don't know if I actually needed to see that, so I thought it was really, like, it didn't come back around, I don't think. So I kind of thought that was an odd beginning to the episode, so I didn't know if you had any thoughts on kicking it off with that.
I think I think it did fit because I think it made more sense. Remember, we just had the revelation that
She was
Rio
deaf.
is death, right, from the last
Yeah.
the episode prior, and I think this was to remind people and to give context to that more. Um, let's divulge for a second here, and let's talk about uh, Aubrey Plaza. She's this little like ball of energy and chaos, right? And as Rio, she was this little ball of energy and chaos and quirky. But I think there was a distinct difference between Aubrey Plaza as Rio and Aubrey Plaza as Death, as we see in these two episodes. She was phenomenal as Death. She was very fierce. She was intimidating. Um, and I really felt that performance of her as Death as compared to just this crazy little person in as Rio Vidal. But her as Death was totally different, and it's more on me. I've never really seen her in any sort of serious role at all, right? That's just because I haven't really sought out any other work she's done or seen her in some of those aspects. But I definitely would love to see her in some more of those roles like that.
Yeah, she has, like, this, we'll talk about it in the episode, the actual finale, episode 9 as well, where she's just somber. Like, you likened death itself to the Twilight Zone episode of one of the newer Twilight Zones that you had watched, right? Where the guy
Yes,
was death and he didn't want to do his job, but he had to do his job, right? And that's how it kind of felt like when we have here, where Alice, and maybe this is why they threw it in here too, because you can kind of see, like, Alice is,
I just ended the curse. I need more time. And she's
yeah,
like,
like, I finally
I hear
fulfilled
this
my
all the time.
duty. Like, why does it end now? I thought I had more time. And Rio's just really like, I'm sorry you don't, right? Like, this is it. And we kind of see she like she doesn't act that way originally when in the 1750s when Agatha's giving birth to Nicholas, right? Like she allows for more time. That the baby was dying,
Yeah.
and she allows for more time. This time with uh with Alice, she does not. So
Well,
maybe
she
that I
makes
think there's a parallel there where they I guess wanted to highlight that.
and she makes the comment later on. She's like, where she tells her, no one else has been granted. What is she says? No one else has been granted or given as much leeway as you have. And
Yeah,
so you've worked customer service before, right? I've worked customer service before. It's not the best job, right? Um, and I think we've had to deal with some of the worst people in customer service. You in a call center, and me working at Walmart, right?
yeah.
Um,
I've been called not human. Yeah, stuff like
yeah,
that.
I've been threatened to be shot, stuff like that, various other things. Cool. Um, there are some very difficult jobs out there, but jobs that are necessary, right? Like a doctor. Imagine, a doctor where you have to go in and either tell a family, unfortunately your loved one has passed away, or they don't have much time left, and there's absolutely nothing we can do, right? That's gotta suck. This is probably one of the most necessary jobs there is, the job of being death, like taking those souls from one plane of existence to another, however you look at it, taking them across the river Styx or whatever it is. And I can't imagine all the excuses you would hear, all the begging and pleading you would hear, everything that you would have to hear. And I can't imagine how much that would weigh on you. Like, I don't know if death as a personification is a human, has a soul itself or something like that, right? But can you imagine just hearing that over and over? No, like, I imagine there are some people who just accept that their time is done and that, their end on this mortal coil has ended, right? There's some people who are
Probably
going to
like the
accept that.
people of old age, right? Like yeah, like people like that.
I wouldn't even maybe say people of old age because I'm sure some of them have regrets and wish they could go back and want things just a few more minutes or something here or there. But just various people in different ways of, okay, take Nicholas. Maybe he didn't know exactly who he was walking up to when he went to death, right? But he didn't really give up a fight. He just kind of accepted and took his walk. Now, he was a child. Once again, children tend to have some sort of a playful innocence and don't necessarily know the context of everything that's going on around them and look at the world differently than we do as adults. Maybe there are some adults who feel they've done everything they can, or maybe they haven't led the best of lives and feel that that's the only way left out for them, and for whatever reason. So there are going to be a few people who will accept what's going to happen and will go somewhat willingly, right? Um, can't imagine most people would. Um, I can't imagine most people wouldn't try and fight. I mean, I don't know what happens there. You're not going to win, as we hear later on. Like they had the same conversation I had out loud. It was like you can't beat death. Like you're not going to win. If there was a line that if there was a line that they could have taken from another Marvel property, it would have been Thanos' "I'm inevitable." Like
Right.
she kind of said that the episode previously, where she's all roads lead to me. Like, but I just imagine, and maybe I'm just looking at this because I am a human and I have a soul and consciousness and everything. Of like, like I imagine how heavy that would be. But she, we look back and she talks about it in an episode or two before, where she's like, you know, I hurt someone that I love, and or what was it? I had a job to do and it hurt somebody I love or whatever, or I love someone and I hurt them. Like, so she does like those thoughts and feelings are there, and I just that like that's It's got to be hard to do, man. That's definitely a job I don't think I would want.
Yeah, you mentioned the River Styx. I don't think they're asking for too much more time because I've heard they have too much time on their hands as it is. That's a little Styx joke. The band obviously got their name from River Styx. Okay. No, but you're right with the, she probably does hear this a lot, and I'm sure she does sympathize with them, but it's the job that she has been given. So you equate it to customer service, and what I kind of equate this to, I guess, is when Agatha is asking for more time with Nicholas. It's almost like she's threatening to go above Death's head, like I need your supervisor, or like Death giving a customer, like a big client, more leeway than a non-big client like
Yeah,
Alice, right? Who doesn't have the time, but because Death and Agatha have had that relationship in the past, that she acquiesce, right? She gives in a little bit because it's that our number one client. I love her. She's given me bodies and I fell in love with her. So I'm going to give her a little bit more time with Nikki.
but she also tells her when she's like, please don't, and she also does tell her like, I can only give you time.
Yeah.
That's got to be heavy too, because So they make the comment in the show of like, how do you think they met? And one of them is like, I heard they met over corpses, or I imagine they met over corpses. And Jack Schaefer talked about that. She did an interview. She talked about that where
Yeah.
they did kind of have this whole thing played out in their head. Where they did kind of meet over corpses, and they had this little meet cute or whatever, right? But you know, I forgot where I was going with that. So, uh, yeah, like, how do you? So death is out there, and So this is kind of where some people who maybe have near death experiences or whatever, and or who almost lose their lives or like beat cancer and come back, and they're like, I'm taking every day as a gift, and they try and live their life to the fullest, right? Agatha knows death is out there. She knows that very well. She knows it intimately. And she knows death is coming for her and her son, right? Like she knows that. She doesn't know when it's going to happen, but she knows she's running on borrowed time. Like, what do you even do in that situation? Like, this isn't like me or you where like I have a heart attack or like I had some medical issues last year where I got pronounced as diabetic, and the doctor I have called me up. It was like 5 or 5:30 in the evening to tell me my results and let me know. Like, we talked for about an hour. Now I don't know her working hours, but usually 5 o'clock is quitting time for a lot of people. So to get a call at like 5:30, and that kind of told me how serious she was about that situation. And my diabetic numbers were really, really high. So I'm glad I got that under control. But like I said, Agatha knows like I'm running on very, very borrowed time. Like, how do you?
And
What do
I
you
think
do
another
there?
question with that is she's a witch who's been around already like 100 years at this point, right? Cuz like this, it was the 1600s when she was with her coven and killed them. This is 1750. So part of me is thinking that she might think, okay, I can have time with Nikki, but like he could grow old, right? Like
Yeah,
I have unlimited time. Like I'm a witch that I keep living for a bit. Maybe I can see out his whole life and have that time with him, right? But it's cut short. And I have a theory on as to why. I saw some people talk about it as well. When Nikki was not, he was never fine with this, but like helping lure witches to Agatha to kill. I think it was a really transactional exchange almost with Death and
yeah.
Rio, right? Like,
Where
here's
she was like,
bodies.
maybe I can stave it off if I'm giving you what you need.
But when he stops wanting to do that, it's the night that he gets taken away. And Agatha listens to him and says, all right, like, we're not going to like fine, like we'll like he runs off, she meets with him, they stay there, and then that's when he's taken. It's when she didn't give a life for death. So I do think maybe if he had been kept wanting to, if he would have kept playing along with it, maybe he would have lived longer. Um, but unfortunately for Agatha and for Nikki, he ends up not wanting to go through with it, and his time has come then.
And you could tell that time was coming short with that cough. As soon as I heard that
Yes.
cough,
Yep.
especially in those times, I'm like, oh man, he's got a
Especially in
cough.
movies and TV shows. Somebody
He is
coughs, they're
doomed.
dead.
But well, not only that, but like movies and TV shows, but like we have modern medicine now, right? So, I mean, you get a splinter in like the 16 or 1700s, you might lose a finger, right? Like,
Right, right.
so yeah, you get a cough that you could hear the phlegm and like everything backed up in his lungs. You're like, oh, he's a goner. He's running on borrowed time.
So I think while we're here with Agatha and Nikki, let's just talk about that whole background while we're here instead of jumping around. So there is a reveal here as well that he came up with the song "The Witch's Road." Right. At first,
We
he's
got
just singing
Kaiser
about a
Sose.
normal road. Yeah. At
We
first,
got
he's just singing
Kaiser
about like
Sose.
the winding road. I think is what he uses, and then
Yeah.
him and his mom come up with the Ballad of the Witch's Road. And I think, later in this episode, she will mention how she can't face him. And I do think part of it is that she has taken his song and has perversed it to being, after he dies, a luring thing to other witches where she ends up stealing their powers and killing them.
I think it's more of the fact that she was his mom and couldn't protect it.
Yeah, I think it's both. I
Like
I I do think it's like, this song is everything to her. Like I was reading this interview with Jack Schaefer, maybe in the same one you mentioned, but like where they mention they had a exchange where she, I think, looked at the camera. They ended up cutting it or something. But it was her. I think they kept the line in though, but like cut some of the stuff where it was kind of maybe alluding to her lying to herself. But when she tells Billy like the song means nothing, like it's nothing, right? Like she's lying a bit. The song is everything to her because it is something that like she had created with her son and bonded with her son. And while they did use it to lure originally, she kind of goes off the deep end once he's dead and like is just killing so many people at once with it. Before they were kind of killing like one witch at a time, or like there's a little less that they were doing. This was like 4 or 5 witches each time that um they're asking about the road. And I don't know, it just became like this bastardized version of what it was when they were singing it to each other, and we see them find the lyrics of the song as they're going through stuff throughout the episode. I just thought that was a really cool reveal, is that it was his song.
you talk about behind the scenes stuff, and from all the stuff on my Twitter feed with this, I cannot wait for the physical release of this because there's going to be so much behind the scenes stuff. Um, one of the things that I loved that I saw was death. A lot of this, I sent you one thing about how all the sets were practical, right? And that was fantastic. I sent you that. Another thing I saw, I meant to send to you, but I forgot, was Death's look, Aubrey Plaza's look as Death with the skull and everything was practical. And there was, they showed some footage of her with the makeup and everything and what she looked like. Like they did some photo shoots of her with that, with her practical effects on, and it just looked fantastic. Like this
Yeah.
physical release is gonna be something. I am like as soon as the pre-orders open up, I am in line for it.
Yeah, this is and again, their least expensive show, but because they were able to probably save money on the set, like they make, of course, they make the set, it looks great, but like they're able to shoot it at different perspectives. They're probably able to move stuff around and reuse stuff where it's a lot more, it's helping this show keep in budget and be the hit that it is. I mean, like, also the show has grown each week. Like, we'll have viewership numbers we'll talk about again, but each week the show is like growing. And at first it was even touted as success when it wasn't maybe as watched as some of the other Marvel shows, but now it continues to grow and it was a cost effective show. I'm sure they'd probably look at this and say, this is how we got to do it moving forward. Because if you read some of the budgets that these Marvel shows have had and that the Star Wars shows have had, they are astronomical. Like,
There's a Secret
astronomical.
Invasion had a Secret Invasion had a couple hundred million, or She Hulk had a couple
Yeah.
$100 million budget.
She
Like,
Hulk was like $250 million. I can understand that a bit more with the CGI, but there's a reason Lou Ferrigno was just painted green in the original Hulk show, right? It's because
well,
it
I
was
mean,
the way to
also
do it back.
he's also a massive human being. Like,
Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
It's
but
there's ways to there could have been ways to maybe make some of these shows a little cheaper, and I'm glad that they're reining it in and able to do so on a show like this. Because Secret Invasion even wasn't like a huge epic show or anything. You're talking about shooting scenes in hallways and stuff like, and it's somehow more expensive than this show. Like, it's just they gotta rein it in, and I think they'll look at the success of this show, which I think had like uh I'll try to find the numbers again, but it had a lot of viewers up in like the first 24 hours for episode 8, and episode 9 was not far behind, and that's right before the holiday of Halloween, and then you probably have people watching on Halloween and the weekend, right, as they're catching up
yeah,
from being busy on Halloween. And
there's a
um
buddy of mine I work with, who he follows a lot of Marvel shows and everything. So uh, he watched like he watched first two episodes, and then he's got a wife and kid and everything, so he kind of fell behind. And it's kind of difficult, especially the last few weeks for us. But he got off early this week, once or twice, and then he caught up, and he told me he had caught up, and he told me the last episode he watched was Lilia's episode, and he was like, "Man, this show was really, really good. Like, I can't believe I waited this long to finish it up." And I'm like, "See, I told you. Like, you need to." And I'm like, "Yeah." I was like, "Just go ahead and watch like episode 8 and 9. You need to watch together because they kind of flow in together." But he's one of those guys in the same boat where he liked it when he first saw it, but he just time life got in the way and time got the best of him, and then when he managed to like sit there and watch it and catch up, he's like, "Oh, especially the last two, the ones with Billy's episode and then Lily's episode." He's like, "Oh man, those were great." I was like, "Yeah, they really are. Those were like probably the two of the best episodes of the series so far." So,
So I found it. Episode 8 hit 4.6 million views in one day, which was up 10% from episode 7. The fact that Disney keeps putting out these numbers, and they're not really the ones doing it. They're releasing it to like Variety and Deadline and stuff. But
but they wouldn't
the
put it out
fact
if it
we've
wasn't
gotten
good.
it right, the fact that we've gotten it for the premiere and for like episodes 6 and 7 and 8, and like the fact that they keep touting it is is remarkable. It shows that they're very happy with it and that the numbers are good. When you have shows like The Acolyte, which the premiere came out and it did well for the premiere, and they say first 3 days, first 7 days, whatever. You never heard about it again, and then they canceled the show. Like, they never put out a number saying episode 5 was watched by this. Like, because the show kept dropping. This show, they keep putting out more and more, and it's continued to rise. Again, this is 24 hours. Agatha had 9 point some million for episode 1 in like the
in a
first
week.
what 5 days or week.
What was it, the
We're
first
now
week or
getting
something like that?
yeah, we're now getting 4.6 million views in one day. And again, and then more people are catching up. I just had my friend Logan, who's been on the show before. He just caught up on the last 3 episodes or something today, and there you have it. These people are going to be doing it over the course of the weekend, and we'll probably get more and more. I wouldn't be shocked if
Next
again
week or
they
the
go
week
to
after we hear like some final numbers or whatever.
yeah, or like they maybe make a deal with Jack Schaefer and say she's working on like we're officially greenlighting the Tommy look hunt for Tommy here, you know, and Jack Schaefer's back for it because she's produced them WandaVision and this show, which are two of their biggest shows, and this one was under budget, or like a lower budget than WandaVision and some of their other shows, and was a hit and has resonated with people. Um, so I wouldn't be shocked if that's something we get soon. Okay, I think we need to talk about the other big reveal. So we got the reveal. Oh, also, I just want to say, as a new dad, this whole Nicholas stuff hit really hard in this show, um, especially like when she was miscarrying originally, right? Like my
Yeah.
wife and I have suffered miscarriages in the past, so now that we have like a child that was a full term, baby, it just really hit what she's pleading for that more time. And I like that they kind of take a comic booky name of Nicholas Scratch and make it mean something when she's saying like I created you out of scratch, right? Like, and people were trying to take it, and like Jack Schaefer has said that's not the way it was intended, but people were trying to take it as like almost immaculately conceiving, like she created the child. But it was more of like a, you know, sometimes you sit there and think like, especially when I look at my son, like I can't believe I made this, like this is just something that has come from me and my wife, and her kind of having that, especially when she was so close to losing him, and being able to say like, I made you from scratch, and it's something that I think she took pride in compared to some of the stuff that she has done in her previous life, right? Like killing people, using magic to make stuff. Like she's saying, I made this, um, without having to use magic. I have like this is something that has come from me. I thought was a pretty cool, yeah, because Nicholas Scratch can just be like a name that you're like, what type of name is that? It's a comic book name, and
Yeah, that
yeah,
was definitely my. I saw there was a wild rumor online too that because if you look at the child who plays Nicholas Scratch, little Nicky, right, and you look at Aubrey Plaza, they do have some similar features. And I
yeah.
saw
There was
the rumor
go
that
ahead.
maybe that was their child together, and I was like, I don't know if I buy that, but if that's what
Jack
makes you get through the
Schaefer,
day, sure.
she kind of talked about it at some point. They were maybe thinking of doing that, but ultimately she says the father is not important in this story, and she said that might get revealed at some point. Like she's like one of those things that when you're working with Marvel, right, is you write something and then like if it's left open, somebody else might pick that up later and run with it.
Yeah,
But she said that as of this episode, like it just wasn't really important in the story they were telling, so they didn't really address it. So, um, and I think that's fair. But I think one thing we also have to address here is the big reveal in episode 8 that the road was never real,
okay.
right? The
There's
road
act there's
the road was
there's
not real
actually
prior to this.
there's actually one more reveal before that, before we get to that one. And this was something I had a problem with. Uh, what is that other witch's name? I'm sorry, I got too many bunks on that. What
Jen,
was
right?
Jen? The reveal that Agatha was the one who apparently put
The
uh
Yeah, she
the
bounded
bind
her
on
or
Jen.
whatever. Yeah, yeah.
I have a problem with this. This bothered me.
What was the problem?
Okay, we we don't have much information on Jen, right? We know, especially after this, that she's been bound for 100 years. So you figure she's got to be at least a good 125 years old, somewhere in that range, right? From what we gather, from what they've shown, and what she has told so far, there was some doctor somewhere who did something to her and put a binding spell on her, right? And in her flashbacks and when they went in the house and everything, and even in the preview or something for this, they showed some doctor with a big thick mustache, right? Who did this? So, okay, I'm thinking at some point we're going to get a reveal. We're going to find out what happened, who this doctor is, what was going on. Was she like a nurse, a doctor's assistant, something like that? And then it's just, oh, she was in Boston around a certain time, and somehow Agatha bound her. Like,
Well, it wasn't that Agatha somehow bound her. It was the doctor had hired Agatha to bound her. She didn't know who she was bounding, but
but there was just they didn't explain
yeah,
that very well. There was
yeah,
no
and
there was no info. It was just
her
it,
story is a little rushed at the end of this episode.
it seemed like, and I don't know how this went, and it seemed like maybe they wrote a whole bunch of stuff, right? And they've got this whole story and everything's laid out, and then someone was like, "Oh shit, we didn't give Jen a backstory, or we never followed up on Jen." And then like as they're trying to figure out and time stuff out and figure out how they're breaking episodes down, right? And I don't know if they do all that and then like however it works with the filming schedule and like how they're doing this, and then at some point someone was like, "Oh man, we didn't do anything with Jen," and they just had to kind of shoehorn something in. I, I didn't like the fact that she survived. I can deal with that if they would have given her a good, if there would have been something more. I like the idea that in some way, okay, Agatha was the one who bound her. Still doesn't make sense, but she unbinds herself, and then she got what she wanted from the road, so she was able to live. She flies off, and who knows if we'll ever see her again. I can deal with that one way or the other. Okay, cool. But just it seems like her story was just so rushed and unfinished and forced, and it was like that bothered me because it was like you guys have been doing so good with a lot of things so far, and then for that, it was just like, come on, damn it.
See, so I'm fine with her. I'm also fine with her surviving. I think that like I don't know her much from the comics, but she is like a bigger name than the rest of the witches that were in the
Coven,
coven, and she
yeah.
is the cousin of Johnny Blaze, who is the Ghost Rider. But so I was kind of hesitant if they would actually like kill her off or not. The I do agree in the sense of the story with the doctor and all that was really on the back burner for her, and I'm fine with the reveal that Agatha was kind of like the one contracted to do the binding and stuff, but I do wish maybe we got more. We got flashbacks as for Lilia, mainly because she was going in and out of time, but we saw her as a young girl. We kind of understood more that was going on there. With Jen, we never really got that except for like episode 3 with the trial. You see like the doctor, and then you see it like one other time, and that was really it, right? Like that was
But
everything
even
for
with what's her name, they didn't get flashbacks, but they still gave a story as to like how everything
with
happened.
Alice.
Like, yeah, with Alice, like
Yeah.
they still gave a complete story of like her mom made this, her mom did this to her, and there was a protection spell, and which takes a weird meaning now when you find out the song is made up, right? But her mom has this huge hit with the song that is played all over the place, and as long as the song is playing, right,
Mhm.
that's offering protection to Alice and everything, and so on and so forth. There was just no story with Jen, and it was like there was so much potential there, and I just like when that happened, that kind of soured me a little bit, and I was like, why? Like it was right there. There was ah frustrating.
Yeah. but it does show at least what they use for her getting through that is that it does show that she passed the trial, and it kind of sets up what Billy and Agatha need to do to get out of there, right? Like, so they at least were able to do it that way, where we see somebody pass the trial and get taken out of it, where you're like, okay, she got what she wanted from the road, she's now out of it, she's good. And then that sets up like, okay, now what do we want from this real quick? We got to solve this stuff. And we do have Billy say he's looking for Tommy, right? And they sit down, Agatha and he sit down, and it's finding a body for Tommy to inhabit. And, Billy is going to even maybe suggest that he is killing the boy that Tommy is going to inhabit. He's like, Agatha, am I killing this kid for Tommy? It's not very clear. I mean, it sounds like it was a prank that the kid was going into with school
Yeah.
friends, bullies, whatever, that he is drowning. And maybe it's just like he doesn't save him, right? And he lets him drown and finds a body for Tommy to inhabit. Jack Schaefer, of course, says that obviously they picked drowning and stuff because it was a way for them to kind of shoot around it without showing the kid, because they didn't cast the
Yeah.
kid, right? Like,
Yeah.
they didn't want to lock in who's playing Tommy, so they
And
just
then
wanted
maybe
to
in a
allude.
couple,
Yeah.
they go back to it in a couple years, but the kids hit a growth spurt, looks totally different. Now you got to
Right,
cast
right.
somebody else, and everybody's like, "Wait a minute, this isn't the same kid."
What they'll probably
Like,
do is, if they do the next show, they'll probably show this scene from his perspective, and you will see the actual kid and all that.
yeah,
So I mean,
kind
that's
of like what they went through when we talked about Terminator last year for the other show, where was it Edward Furlong like hit a growth spurt and went through puberty, and then like part of the way through shooting, they end up having to redub his voice because his voice started cracking. It was different, and then they had to, because he started growing, and they were like, it, if you're watching this, you can tell, but like Arnold Schwarzenegger was like this tall, and like Edward Furlong was initially this tall, but then he started having his growth spurt and he started getting bigger. So then they had to like dig holes for him to stand in for some scenes so he could maintain the same height semblance, right? And then just that can puberty can just mess with your looks a little bit. You look totally different, right?
yeah,
2-3 years from now when they come back to it, it's like, wait a minute, this isn't Tommy. What the hell happened?
yeah, yeah,
And people on the internet will go crazy over that. And it's not this kid's fault, right? Like, and ultimately, that's who's going to take all the backlash from this, right? Is
yeah,
people are
yeah.
going to make all these complaints, and this poor kid who's just got hired to do this role and is trying to live his dream of being an actor is going to take all the backlash from it of like, you don't look like Tommy. What happened to you? Why didn't you take care of yourself? Because people are just a-holes. And, some poor kid doesn't need that.
So he gets out of the trial by finding the body for Tommy. He's out of the road. And then we have Agatha, who needs, to the whole like riddle of this one, right, is being able to put like grow something right from this. So she has in her locket, she's looking at her locket, which is Nikki's hair, and she's just reminiscing on it, and you see a dandelion, you know
Yeah.
seed there, and she puts it in there and is able to have it quickly grow for her to pass the trial. And it takes her to um, her house, and Rio is there because, hey, they made a deal at the beginning of the episode. Lead Billy to me. He's an abomination. He shouldn't be alive, right? He is
He
inhabited
has to
this
give
other body.
himself up, because
Yes.
if she takes him, he's just going to inhabit another body after that. So he has to willingly give himself up to her.
Right.
And this is where, like I said, Aubrey Plaza did fantastic as Death. Her fierceness and her portrayal of, you know, and this is earlier in the episode is the conversation we talked about before, where they showed during the trailer where Your coven's dying and the bodies are starting to pile up. What are you gonna do?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And we get, Billy comes in. He's got his Wiccan outfit on. He comes in to save Agatha, and he says, "Hey, don't take it all," right? Referring to the power, and he hits her with it for her to absorb some. And it looks a little dicey here. She might be siphoning on a little too much, but she does actually cut it off
Yeah, I
and
was way
starts
wrong
fighting
with
with Rio.
Alice. I thought it was a self defense mechanism. That was not the
Oh yeah,
case.
she literally was like, "No, I could have, I could have stopped." Yeah, we got at least an answer on that as well, and she almost does give up Billy here still after all this, but Billy kind of has like this reading her mind, conversing with her telepathically, and she does turn around and ends up kissing Rio, which I guess like Rogue in the X-Men sucks all of the life out of her. She falls and becomes a bunch of flowers.
Let's talk about the citizens of Westview here.
I'm glad they showed them again too. They're like, "What the hell? Are you kidding me?"
All right, so the citizens of Westview. Who knows what happened 3.5 years ago, right? They're just living their normal lives. Along comes Wanda Maximoff, the Scarlet Witch. Also, I love the fact that they just keep referring to the son of the Scarlet Witch and the Scarlet Witch, right? So that tells me I
Yeah,
think there will be more Wanda down the road. I was way wrong. She did not appear in either of these episodes. So I'm batting like 1 for like 99 or something. Oh well. But along comes Wanda Maximoff, aka the Scarlet Witch. Puts a hex all over the entire town of Westview. Starts controlling people so she can live out this life of her and her husband Vision and going through sitcom periods and everything else, right? And the people suffer from this, okay? Like they're trapped inside their bodies and don't want to do all this stuff, but they don't have a choice. They have to go along. Then all kind of chaos ensues. The town almost implodes, right? They get rid of Wanda, but Agatha is still there. And then they realize Agatha's a witch as well. But good for them. Wanda put some whatchamacallits up, locks Agatha into the town where she's going to maintain her, I don't want to say innocence, but she's going to maintain being the nosy neighbor of Agnes, right? And that's it.
mm-hmm.
And the townspeople are like, okay, we can deal with this. They talked about it earlier. They kept sending groceries to her and they played along with her. She was going through recently a true crime phase. So they just, went along with it, whatever, whatever. Then chaos ensues at the beginning of this, and then you had the Salem 7 that pop up, and the neighbor's like, oh, hell no. Then who knows how much time has passed? Maybe a day or two, maybe a week. Maybe it's only overnight where they come back out from the Witch's Road. Now there's purple all over the place. There's thunder and lightning. They don't know it, but Agatha's fighting death next door, right? All kind of crazy shit is going on. So I'd say this might have the lowest cost of living and might be one of the cheapest places in the country to live, even though it's in New Jersey, because like I can't imagine many people are going to want to live. Also, if a realtor's trying to sell this land and or this house, like, are they obligated to disclose stuff like that? Like,
Yeah,
hey,
like
there was
true.
B. At what point, if you're one of these neighbors, do you decide enough is enough and you're moving to another town? And is it worth it?
Yeah,
Because as we've talked
even to
about
Eastview,
before,
it's just right down there. Like at least go to
but
Eastview.
but as we talked about before in the MCU, there's really no place that's safe. Like there's all kind of just wacky shit that's out there, and aliens and gods and these other beings and
Yeah,
and alternate
Casey, I
dimensions.
think
Like
I think give me Westview. I think if I'm there, I'm like, all right, look, that one thing happened 3 years ago. This time was very confined to just like 5 minutes in Agatha's backyard. Instead of New York City, which is constantly alien invasions or super Spider-Man villains
But New York
and
City's just, even outside of the MCU, New York City's just wild as it is. Same thing with Los Angeles, right? Like, okay,
yeah,
not saying we got to move to like one of those. I'm just saying, like, dude, maybe a town in Iowa doesn't look so bad now, right?
true,
Maybe like
true.
El Paso, Texas, where I used to live when I was in the army, right? I loved El Paso anyway, but can't imagine there's a lot of superheroes or villains, or but then again, with the culture that's down there and being right on the Mexican border. Yesterday was Dia de los Muertos, and you never know, right? But maybe I'll take my chances with like San Antonio or El Paso. Salt Lake City
Mhm.
might not be looking too shabby, right? Denver, or the outskirts of Denver, Colorado, Seattle. But dude, I look once, okay, like the whole thing with Wanda. Once, like I get it. The world we live in is entirely different now. We don't know, but a second time in 3 years, like,
Yeah.
okay, like I just want to live my life here. Like I'm the whoever the mailman was, dude. I'm just trying to deliver mail. Like dude? What's going on here? I can't. I gotta get to another office, man. I can't be living working here.
Yeah, you're like, give me the election mail again. I'd rather that over this witches stuff going
Nah, cause nah. I'd rather stick with the witches because
on.
simply put, we can curtail the mail and bring it back if we have a valid excuse.
Yeah,
Like
yeah.
sad story. One time, go. I don't have this apartment complex anymore. They took it off my route. But um, drive up. I'm getting ready to turn into an apartment complex I deliver to. And there's a line to get in, which there never normally is. And then I pull in, and then it's blocked off, and I see a bunch of police everywhere.
Hmm.
And I'm like, oh man. And I didn't really notice, and then I looked, and I saw the yellow tape up. And now, along with the yellow tape, they have these like barricades that they put up
Yeah.
for certain things. And I saw the barricade, the rectangular barricade up, and I was like, oh, well, these boxes aren't getting delivered today. So I turned around. I was able to get in
Yeah, yeah.
another part of the complex and deliver most of it, but I just gave my supervisor a call. Hey, I gotta bring these two sets of boxes back. What happened? Somebody's dead. Somebody got shot. Police are all over the place. And oh, okay, yeah, just okay, bring it back. We'll write it up, and because we have post inspectors, they might come by, and if they see mail that's left over from a day or
Right, right.
previously, like especially now with the election, that's a whole big thing. But yeah, no, I'd rather deal with that because I can just be like, the witches are at it again. I'm bringing this mail back. Like, okay, cool.
Yeah. Just imagine there's probably somebody in that office or in that apartment building like I was really looking for my Amazon package or I was
There
looking
were
for
a couple
my
Amazon
package.
packages. I had a couple Amazon packages where it was like all I could do, I scan them is uh I couldn't basically I scanned them. I couldn't get to the place, right? Our scanners don't have anything for like police or whatever. I think UPS's might because I know UPS and the Teamsters union. We have a union too, but they're big union guys. So UPS actually can't cross a picket line to deliver a package. So one of the things on their scanners that they have is like there's a strike or a picket line, and they won't cross the picket line to deliver a package. So they'll just scan it as not crossing the picket line. And hey, whenever the strike's not there, or you can come outside of the picket line to come pick up
Hmm.
your stuff. But yeah, they're not going to cross it. So uh, address unaccessible, or not accessible is what we I would just use for ours. But yeah, we need something for like because it's not the first time I've had like police or whatever. There was one time I was driving up to another place and they were getting ready to raid. Uh, they were getting ready to raid a place, and there was like six or
Wow.
seven cop cars, and they were all. And I was like, I just need to get to the mailbox. I was like, oh, looks like not getting to it. And then the guy did call the day before. And he's like, hey, because he had a package too. He's like, supposed to get a package yesterday. And I had to explain to my supervisor, yeah, I was there at the same time. Like 7 cop cars were coming up with a tactical plan before they literally, like they did like 1, 2, 3 break, and they got in their car and they started hauling ass up this dirt road
Dang.
to this guy's place. And I was like, yeah, I don't know what they did, but whatever it was pretty serious. So I was there when that happened. So explain that to him. And when I talked to my supervisor later, he was like, yeah, they had some things going. He wouldn't tell me, but they had some things going on. So he's like, yeah, he understood. That's why he didn't get delivered. Okay, glad to know it.
So the other big reveal here, of course, is one that I actually the day before this episode dropped, or maybe the day of the episode dropping, I had saw that this was a theory that was going around, and I was like, oh,
Really?
that would be I was like, this would be interesting if this is true. And again, it was people were starting to catch on because of the stuff in Billy's room in the episode 6, and
Yeah, I was gonna say it was right in front of us the first time,
yeah,
right? And for anybody listening, I used this term earlier. I said we got Kaiser Soze. For anybody who doesn't know, right? That's from Kevin Spacey movie The Usual Suspects, where the movie's like 25 years old now. So if you don't want to hear about it, fast forward like 15 seconds. But spoiler alert,
good movie.
uh, it is a fantastic movie. It is one of my favorite movies of all time. Basically, there's a guy being interrogated by the police, right? Um, Kevin Spacey plays Verbal Kent, a guy being interrogated by the police about this whole series of crimes and incidents that led up to it. Chaz Palminteri is the cop, or from the Justice Department or something. I don't know, one or two. Um, and he thinks he's got the drop on Verbal Kent, and he's trying to find out if there's a certain person that he's been chasing is dead. Right? He thinks he's got it all figured out. And in the very end, we come to find out that the guy he was actually looking for all the time was literally sitting right in front of him the whole time, and is the guy that they were looking for, this notorious gangster called Kaiser Soze. And he was literally making the entire story up and picking names,
From
picking
like the
places and
board and the maps and stuff. Yeah.
stuff all across the room. He used a guy, a name of Kobayashi, that was on the bottom of a mug from the company that made the mugs. He said he was in a barbershop quartet in Skokie, Illinois, which when he looked at like the cork board was where the board was made, and the name of the company that made the board was Quartet, and he got names off of like wanted posters in the room and stuff like that. And then by the end, by the time he realizes it, he goes to chase him after he had already set him loose, but he gets outside and he's gone, never to be seen again. Right? One of the greatest twist endings in cinematic history, I will dare to say. I don't think many
Mm-hmm.
people will
Mm-hmm.
disagree with that. So yeah,
But yeah, we got that. Yeah.
everything was literally in this room, and they showed it to us. The thing with the Usual Suspects is they didn't show us any of this. They didn't show us the wanted poster that said Redfoot. They didn't show us the bottom of a corkboard that said Quartet Industries from Skokie, Illinois. They didn't show us the ceramic mug that said Kobayashi Incorporated or whatever, right? We just see later as the cop is putting this together, and he starts going to all these things across the room, and then they start playing back the conversations he had. They showed us everything a few episodes ago, but we thought he was just in a phase where like he was into witches and it was stuff that he liked. We didn't realize like no. Yeah, or it was stuff he liked, and that like he's the reason the road initially, with the information we get, is he's the reason the road is the way it was, right? So
Yeah.
initially, I thought the Witches Road would be something different for everyone. So, like, let's say me and you went down the Witches Road. Who knows what that would be like? Jesus Christ, probably a bunch of Marvel stuff for like video games or weird movie references that we've made all throughout.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, Knowing each other and some Superstore stuff thrown in there, right?
Yeah.
But I thought maybe it'd be something different for everybody, right? Because if we go back, they ended up back at the beginning of the Witches Road again, right? Like it was literally just a big circle. Um, so I thought maybe it was that, like, oh, it was something because it was something that was close to him. It was something he wanted or he knew, and to make him comfortable, that's what it was. And then when we get to episode 9, that's where we find out no, he completely like, the Witch's Road only existed because he made it up. It will he basically conjured it into existence and allowed it to happen.
And this answers so many questions because there's been so many times in here where we have wondered, has Agatha actually walked the road before?
You have, I
No.
have, I was steadfast that she had walked it before, and I would say I was half wrong because she had not technically walked the Witch's Road before, but she made up the song about the Witch's Road, so she did
Yeah.
kind of create the entire aspect of the Witch's Road. So I'm giving myself half a point on that one. I need it.
But what she meant, right, was like she has used this song now to have
Yeah.
people find her pretty much. She tells them, yeah, I walked it, and then she kills them. That's what she was planning to do on the first episode, like episode 2, when the coven gets together,
Yeah.
right? She's like, all right, I'll
I
steal their
plan to kill him in
power.
my basement. Yeah.
And I was going to kill them in the basement. And I was kind of right when we talked about that first time where I thought like,
Yeah.
oh, it wasn't,
The
like
door
Rio
appeared
or
because of
Mrs.
Billy.
Hart. The
Yeah.
door opened because of Billy. He was the fifth one. And it's kind of true. Yeah, he opened it because he created it because he really wanted to get there and because the Salem Seven's following behind. So at that point, they need an escape and it opens.
So here's the question: are the Salem Seven real?
Yes. Yes, they are. Because they existed outside of the road creation.
Okay. But yeah, like so one we get Ghost Agatha. Wasn't expecting that. Not sure how I feel about that. Um, I'll say up front, I had some issues with this episode. I'll say this: this series is absolutely fantastic. It is my favorite series that Disney and Marvel has done. I think they could have ended it at episode 8, and I would have been fine. I think many people would have been fine. Like that would have been enough. We could like it to me this entire episode 9, or not the entire episode, but episode 9 was a dud for me.
Really?
I did get something I wanted, where I wanted to know what happened in the last couple hundred years with Agatha, right? Got an answer to
Mm-hmm.
that, but basically she just went around killing witches and taking their powers, right? And then we see
Getting
like one of the
stronger.
great montages, we see her in different time periods in colonial times, and then in like the 20s and 30s we see her dressed as like a 90s goth witch, which was outstanding. Like that was probably my favorite one, with the 90s look there. But we see her in these different periods and things, ultimately taking and this is where we get the story of Nicholas, and we talked
Yeah, yeah.
about before with death and everything. But we get, we see her throughout time, and she's done this. She's basically been a con man, a con woman for the last 100 or so years, last couple hundred years. Um, After she buries Nikki, and another witch came up because she heard her singing the song. Somehow the word of the witch's road gets out, and she's like, "Oh, you can. It'll give you what you want." And then that's where she gets the idea, and she starts taking power. Cool, but I don't know. It just the like because the 20 or so minutes that dealt with Wanda in the past and everything, right? I
Mm-hmm.
get cool. I enjoyed. I liked. I like I've said before. I wanted to know what she was doing for a couple hundred years, and I'm sure there was more in there. But that's pretty much a good way to sum up what she did in the last 250 years, because that's pretty much all she did, right? For all we know, she might have been the reason why the Titanic hit the iceberg, right? Like maybe
Right.
she was she caused something, and that's what caused the Titanic. like the guy in the tower not to see the iceberg, and then we hit it, and that's how the Titanic goes down. But I don't know, just the whole after the Ghost Agatha thing and the like last 15-20 minutes that kind of dealt with that, I could have dealt without, and it fell flat for me. And I don't know, I think they either could have just added that 20 minutes on to episode 8, or they could have just ended at episode 8 where it did, where Billy turns around and is shocked by someone or something, we don't know what. And then that could have been it. And then that would have kept people like intrigued enough to go into whatever was next. But
Hmm.
I think episode 9 for me was just very flat, and I was disappointed at the finale.
See, like I still think like we needed answers that we wouldn't have gotten until we got episode 9 then. So like I kind of sat here and thought about, because like, the first half of episode 9 is all flashback, and you're like, this is a weird way to do a finale. But then I was thinking, you can't do this part before that reveal in episode 8, because the reveal in episode 8 is that he created it all in his head. So then you get in episode 9 where like you can't show that the song is just being created out of nothing and actually her stealing all these people's power and it's not real before you reveal the before you reveal the reveal in episode 8. And I think that's kind of where it became an issue for how they're structuring stuff. Is they wanted that, I'm assuming, again, episode 8 was scheduled to probably be made, it was made as a separate episode. So their thought is probably, this is the hook to get him come back for the finale. And it's this reveal that Billy has created all the stuff in his room, blah, 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 blah. And then the Ghost Agatha tease, right? And then you're like, oh, I'll come back in for the finale next week. As 2 episodes back to back, you sit there and get the reveal, and I immediately was like, let's watch the next one. And then you get the background of Agatha, and then you get the continuation of episode 8 stuff. So, because I also think if you did all of like the back half of 9 in episode 8, then episode 9 being just the flashback, people, if it was just flashback the whole time, would again be like, that kind of felt like a bonus episode. Like, what was that? So I think they were trying to balance this. But I also don't think you can just end the season on episode 8's reveal, because there's some stuff that we needed to get to in episode 9, I think, that would have been needed. And at this point, they made this as one season. So I would have probably felt more unsatisfied if we just cut it off at episode 8.
I don't know. I mean, so the aspect of uh this episode 9 is where we see Jen make it out of the road and she flies away. Okay, cool. Here's a question, and this will tie into the end of the actual end of episode 9, where she's like, "Let's go find your brother." Um, what about his parents? Like, is he just gonna run away from his parents? Like, does he explain? Does he explain all of this to his parents? Like, so he obviously wants to
I
go
don't know.
find his brother, right? He's still 16, but he obviously wants to go find his brother. Cool. So is he just gonna run off? So okay, I can imagine his brother's probably in the Eastview, Westview metropolitan area. I don't think that area exists. I'm making it up, right? Or the
Mhm.
Twin Cities area. Let's call it Eastview and Westview. We'll call it Twin Cities area, right? Cool. I imagine Billy or Tommy somewhere in the Twin Cities area. Like I don't think Tommy is in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, right? Okay, so he's not going to travel very far or anything, but still, like, he's leaving and he wants to go find his brother. Like, is he going to explain this to his parents? Does he explain to his parents, like, hey, technically I'm the body of your son, but you know the crazy witch from next door who caused the whole Westview anomaly? Like, I'm actually her son that she made up, and when her son, when your son died in that car accident, my soul inhabited his body. So technically, I'm the body of your son, but inside I'm someone else. Um, so you're
So I'm
really
not
not
really
going to see
concerned
me.
about any of that. Like, in my
I am
in my
because I
opinion,
overthink things.
I don't think he's leaving right now. Like, I don't think it was like a. And also, they're gonna have to research. They're gonna have to find out. Like, look, we know this kid was drowning. All right, let's like they'll be doing stuff probably at like the Westview Library. Like, all right,
Or
recent
up in his
drowning.
room. Could be up in his
Yeah,
room. I mean,
yeah. So I think for like if we're starting um the
the
hunt
search
for
for Tommy.
Tommy
Yeah.
season 1, right? And they I don't think we're kicking it off with him in like Lithuania, like I'm on the hunt for my brother. Like I think we probably start in his bedroom, recent drownings, blah blah blah. So I don't think he has to tell them anything right now. I don't I was wondering if they were going to address that when he came in and they're kind of like, what the hell happened to you? But it seems like he maybe just kind of skirted around that a bit and took a shower and that was that. So I'm not too concerned with that. I'm glad I'm glad they showed Jen, but I also felt like they needed to keep having more a resolution between Billy and Agatha, which is what this episode is. Like he's trying to banish her at one point, and then they come around to each other enough where they're actually going to help each other look for Tommy. And I think if the whole last episode was the flashback, I would have been more upset. I'm glad that at a certain point we pivot back to uh to to today. I have some of the hints, of course, that the road wasn't real. Billy to Agatha in episode 1 or 2, take me to the witch's road, and she's like, come again. And he says, the witch's road, I want you to take me there. She says, the road doesn't exist. You're lying. Am I? you know so she was straight up front like, hey, this thing doesn't actually exist. And when they get to the road, right, he has the saying of like, just like I pictured it, right? um there was Agatha makes comments while on the road that Agatha agrees that it suits him, right? When he says it, imagine it's exactly how I imagine. The first trial, she says, write off your vision board, right? So there is just so many hints that this thing was not real. Then there's the figurines, the Wizard of Oz figurines, right?
There was the Kerr kind of
The Ouija
breaking the
board.
fourth wall. Her kind of breaking the fourth wall when she went to open the door looking at the camera. And like she wasn't necessarily breaking the fourth wall, but it was more like, can you believe this? Like, this
Oh
isn't
yeah, yeah.
supposed to be here.
There is a tree statue that looks like um the way it was on the road. There's the Lorna Wu poster, which of course she sang the Ballad of the Witch's Road. And now that kind of makes sense on why, not just for Alice's trial, but why that song was prevalent in the road at all. Billy did have a vision board. He had a Ouija board. The small shoe figurines that kind of look like when
Yeah,
they took off the show. Uh,
yeah. The
when
Wizard of
uh,
the figurine of the witch from the Wizard of Oz.
her telling him, I didn't think you had it in you, right? And he says, you didn't think who had what in them, and she winks. Um, even with the sigil, the way you and your mother have the same tell, which is very inconvenient for you. The tell being they can create stuff out of like he ultimately does the same thing his mom did, which was creating this false reality that ropes in all of these other people. He does the same thing, and he starts thinking, I am the reason Lily is dead, I'm the reason Alice is dead. But she helps him here. She frames it of, I was going to kill them, you actually saved a life because Jen made it out and she got her
I hate
powers
to
back.
say
But
it,
you are not
but
the problem.
I don't know. He's kind of right. It is.
How
It
can
is
he
his
be
fault
right though? She was going to kill them.
because if he had never went to her in the first place to do this whole witches road thing, like she
You don't
wasn't
think she
going
would have
to.
eventually? She was looking for
She was.
power again anyway.
She was still under. She was still under a spell from Wanda. She was still going to be this
Yeah,
hard-boiled cop who was telling her chief to eat ass, right?
yeah. But do you
She
think
was.
she would have been like that the whole time?
Yes, Wanda's been
I
dead
don't know.
a few years now, right? So Wanda's been dead a few years, and she was still playing this part, right? And the
Yeah,
townspeople had just found a way to deal with that. He decided to butt his nose in and go find her. He set all this in motion. He didn't really save a life. He cost 3 other people their lives because otherwise everyone else would still be alive. It is his
yeah. I
fault,
don't know.
100%.
I think, in my opinion, I think Agatha gets out of the spell at some point and kills witches anyway. So I do
I
think her
don't.
being dead is a net positive, and
I,
it's
I
good for
don't
her.
think. I don't think she gets out of it. She hadn't got out of it in what 2 years? Well, she's been under for 3 years, but Wanda died 2 years ago,
Mm-hmm.
right? So the spell hadn't been broken after Wanda was quote unquote dead for the last 2 years. So the only way for the spell to be broken was either Wanda has to come back or someone strong enough has to find a way to break the spell. That was Billy. Billy doesn't go butting his nose in and breaking the spell on Agatha Harkness. Those 3 women are still alive. Those neighbors in Westview don't have to worry about the Salem 7 messing things up. They don't have to worry about
Well, the
whatever
Salem 7 didn't
happened.
even do anything.
They didn't do anything, but okay, the one dude who did see them and knows that they're there, like I can't imagine the stress he's got to deal with now, right? After what he saw, like that can't be healthy. Lucky he didn't have a heart
That's
attack,
Tuesday in the MCU, though. Like
right?
that's nothing.
D- Look, I am. If I was a lawyer, I would find a way to trace this directly back to Billy to put him in jail for life. Those women are dead because of the actions he specifically took. He does not take any of those actions. He doesn't go into Westview to find Agatha Harkness. 3 other women are still alive. He created the Witch's Road, which caused those women to die. He doesn't go there and do that. Those women are
My
alive, living their
the
lives.
the problem with that, Casey, though, is I feel like you could just kick the can down the road even more and say that the fault is actually Wanda's for creating Westview Anomaly and creating Tommy and Billy in the first place.
But she's already dead.
Yeah, but I'm just saying that triggered everything, right? But then you could put it on the Avengers blame by saying they're the ones that recruited Wanda. And if they hadn't
You
recruited
very well
Wanda
could.
and she became an Avenger, like that just gets too much. That's like too far down the
But
line.
no,
Like
but this is
he can't
directly
blame himself for Agatha,
he
but
absolutely
like it's
can. He
Agatha's
directly
decision.
caused this. He caused this directly. It is his fault. He needs to suffer the guilt for the rest of his life for the fact that 3 women are dead.
I know, no. I totally disagree because he
Yes,
cannot control what Agatha does.
he
It's
can control
Agatha's
what he
choice
did.
to
He
to
didn't
kill
have to
them.
start this whole thing, though. If he doesn't do that, Agatha would never have even had the option to kill them because she's still playing whatever role it is that she decides to play this week.
Yeah, but so he is just a kid looking for where he belongs, his family.
That doesn't mean he gets to kill 3 women.
He didn't kill them. He did
He
not kill
did.
them.
He caused this to happen. Okay, if you are in many states, if you are involved in a felony
Mm-hmm.
and your involvement in that felony causes someone to die, you are liable for their murder. Like it's just a matter of law. If you're involved in a felony and your actions in that felony cause someone to lose their life, you are responsible for murder. Maybe manslaughter at like the least, but you are responsible for their deaths. because you took part in that felony, which caused those things to happen. This is the same principle. He doesn't leave his house to go to Westview to find Agatha. Those women are still alive. He started this whole thing and caused it to happen directly. His direct involvement caused 3 women to lose their lives and 1 other woman to be traumatized for the rest of her life because of what she had to
Is she
deal with on the road.
traumatized?
I'm sure she is.
She got her powers
She's
back. She's
and
happy.
she also everything she had to deal with and seeing 3 other women die, or at least 2 other women, right?
Yeah, but she's seen people die before. She's not upset by that.
I'm pretty sure she is.
Each character was left in a better place than before Billy had found them.
No,
Alice
the being
Alice
dead is
broke her
not in a better
curse.
place, but she's
Alice
dead.
broke her curse. Yeah,
So
but she
you
has resolution with her mom.
would you rather be dead or alive with a curse?
Probably. I mean, I don't know what I would prefer, but she got
No. You got to pick one.
eased off of her
You said she's
shoulder.
in a better place. You said she's in a better place. So pick one. Would you rather be dead or be alive and have a curse on you?
It depends what the curse is. In this case, she wasn't able to keep a job. She wasn't able to do anything. She wasn't living.
She was like 25 years old at least. She was able to have a decent life somewhat. Well, answer the question though. Would you rather be dead or alive with a
With her
curse?
with her curse, I'd rather be dead.
I'd rather be alive. At least I'm still alive with a curse.
But she wasn't able to do anything. Like her every job she lost because of her curse. She wasn't able to actually live. She gets that resolution with her mom and why her mom had done what she had done. She gets all of that resolution and she's able
Let's
to move
let's
on.
go let's go back to her at the start of episode 8. You think she'd rather still you think she'd rather be dead? Because she was saying
No,
no, she still wanted to be alive.
she wanted to be
I think she,
alive, but she wanted more
I
time now that the curse was done.
but I still think she'd rather be alive with that curse than have to go into the
I
afterlife.
don't know. I don't know about that. She gets to go to the afterlife. She's living forever. Then you have Lilia, who was experiencing the whole out of time stuff, and she got her resolution with that as well. So I think she's in a better spot. She willingly gave herself up. Actually, she could have kept going, but she willingly gave herself up. So I wouldn't even say that she. I can't put all this on Billy at all.
I
So I think
100% put this on
Agatha's
Billy.
right here. Leave it in the
I
comments
have to firmly
below, or
disagree.
in the send us your
Billy
thoughts if you're listening.
Billy doesn't stick his nose in and get involved. Women are still alive. The people in Westview are still living their normal lives.
Are they? They don't have to worry
Things
about
seem to be
Agatha
going.
anymore. They don't have to worry about
They weren't really
Agatha.
that.
She's dead.
They weren't worried about her for the last 3 years.
They were taking
They just had
care of
to.
her. They don't have to worry about taking care of her. They don't
Okay.
have to worry about their weird neighbors showing up naked in front of their children and stuff. She's done. She's
Once
gone.
again, she didn't show up naked until Billy decided to butt his nose into everything.
No, she was naked before that.
No, that was after the curse. That was after the whatchamacallit, the spell had been broken.
Oh, well, still, like, whatever. They don't have to worry about her. They were bringing her groceries. They're worried about her. They don't have to worry about her. She's gone.
They weren't that concerned. She was just going about her life, doing whatever. Like, dude, still watering his lawn over here. Mrs. Hart is taking care of her flowers, right? She's just chilling.
Mm-hmm.
What's her name? Dottie at the library, just doing her thing. Like, nobody's concerned. Guy's just living his life, combing his mustache out. Things are good.
They were concerned. They show up saying, "Hey, are you okay?" They're concerned.
That could just be being good neighbors. But now,
But now they don't have to be good neighbors. They don't have to worry
well,
about
now
it
they
anymore.
don't have to live in Westview. I'd still say you might have to think about moving out of Westview.
Anything else about this episode or the reveals?
So 2 things. How would you rate the season overall? And where do you think they go from here? I still
Um,
give the season a 9 out of 10, even though for me that last episode was a dud. I wasn't a fan of it, or I wasn't a fan of all of it. Like I said, about half of it I really loved, right? but it was just the last other things in there. That and adding the whole thing with Jen where they just kind of like shoehorned, oh, Agatha put the binding spell on her, and that was it, right? Like I didn't like those. But that was really, honestly, those might have been like the only things I didn't like in the whole series. So still a 9 out of 10. It's still my top show so far.
Mm.
It's still my favorite. Um, I don't know where they go from here. Obviously, at some point down the road, do they go to find Billy first? Do they do a
Tommy.
Scarlet Witch movie? They've mentioned Scarlet Witch way too much in this series. Um,
Well, one of the producers did say, just to clarify this too, they never considered showing Wanda in this show, so that was always off the table. Um, so just that little reference in episode 1 with her body, um, that Agatha is, investigating, is really the only thing that they had ever planned for Wanda in this. Um, I look, there's rumors of a Scarlet Witch movie. Obviously, this sets up finding Tommy. Um, if I'm Disney, I fast tracked that with how this show performed. I'm like, yeah, let's try to get this film next year so I can put it out for 2026. Like, let's not have 3 years between these. Like, let's get something out. So what I'd be backing up the Brinks trunk for Jack Schaefer to come back and do this show, since she did this show affordably and it's a hit. Um, so that's what I would do. Overall for this show, I don't know where I put it. I have a tougher time ranking stuff now that we
you've
have
seen
so
way
many
too many too.
projects.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's so many projects now. I will say, I put a tweet out there saying, like, I really enjoyed this show. I was very um hesitant going in. I'm like, do we really need an Agatha show? Like, what will this cover? Um the story told in this show was worth it. And I think that they did things in this show that some of the other shows hadn't done well enough. The reveals, the fact that the hints are there for the Lilia stuff, the hints are there for Billy creating the road, the hints are there for him being a Maximoff. Like, all of this stuff was set up and was paid off in almost every story except for Jen's, right? Like, that's the one we can look at and say they didn't do that one well enough. While I think in other shows we may say there's 3 storylines they didn't do well enough. This one was really like there was really only one that wasn't done well enough, which is good. I I don't know if I can give it out of 10. Out of 10, I'm probably putting it at like an 8, right? But like, I don't know where I put some of the other ones. It's not my favorite of the shows, but I was pleasantly surprised and I enjoyed talking about it. I enjoyed discussions about it. It gave us stuff to theorize on. It gave us, um,
Gave
you
us a
know,
reason to throw Billy in jail.
yeah, for Casey, yeah, that was something for him. That was a positive. Um, but overall, I was really enjoyed it. Did you stick around and try to see if there was a post credit scene?
I did for both episodes. And maybe we just got spoiled. I'm okay that there wasn't one. Um, honestly,
Me too.
the only way they could have had one would have been if they would have shown Wanda somewhere, right? Because like you said earlier, you can't, and they did a good job by not casting Tommy because if they would have shown like some kid waking up, and he yells
Yeah,
out Billy, like okay, you're gonna know that's Tommy. But then we go down the road we talked about earlier, like if it's 2 or 3 years before they do this show, like what happens to that actor? Is he still the same? Do they recast it? Maybe, hopefully not, but maybe he gets in legal or trouble or whatever and can't do it, and then they got to do all that other recasting, right? All this other stuff. Right? So, like, if they would have done a post credit scene, it would have been limited to like honestly those two things. I think they probably
yeah.
could have shoehorned something else in there, but those are the only two I can really imagine. One, you
Here,
can't do logistically. Two, if they said they never thought about showing Wanda, then both are off the table.
something I found interesting. This was from the Jack Schaefer interview. I don't know if you saw this. The interviewer asks, basically every Marvel Studios project has a post-credit scene, but Agatha All Along does not. Why wasn't there one? And Jack says, that's a Marvel decision. I know nothing more than that. They asked her, did you have one in mind? Yes, I wrote a number of tags because you always do on every Marvel thing. I love writing tags. I think some of my best writing is in the tags that were never made. I should have a little binder of my tags. They're so fun to write because you're writing the promise without having to deliver. They're the best. But there are so many things that factor into those. And I was told that we weren't doing a tag on this show that doesn't affect my work or my vision for the show. I tweeted that and I said, good, honestly, good. I love post credit scenes. I do. But when this started, right, we originally had post credit scenes on almost every episode of every show. Then they scaled those back.
Yeah.
But also, we have in phase 4 and 5, I know you haven't seen every project, Casey, but we have so many tags that have happened that have had no follow up whatsoever. And we are 3 years into this. So, like she said, you're setting up a promise that you don't have to deliver. That's set up for somebody else.
Yeah,
And if they
someone
don't
else has to
decide
deal with the
to
consequences.
and if they decide they don't want to deal with that right now, they're unfulfilled promises. Only do tags when you know. That's like if we had the Thanos tag in Avengers and just never dealt with him until now. You're like, are we getting him or what? Like, we have some from Shang-Chi that have not been talked about. We haven't even seen Shang-Chi in 3 years. We have
Or just
tags
imagine
from,
if they would have with Wanda and Pietro, right? That
yeah,
you know that was what at the end of Age of Ultron they showed those two.
yeah. Oh no, it was
What
a project before Age of
Civil
Ultron
War?
showed it.
No, no, not Civil War.
I think it was
er,
Guardians or Thor the Dark World. It was like, because that was right before Ultron, were those movies. Winter Soldier? It may have been Winter
yeah,
Soldier.
that's what it was. It was Winter Soldier.
It was Winter
Yeah.
Soldier.
So imagine they
So
show
yeah,
us those, right? And I don't know the comics, like I've said many times. You guys do. You know that's the Scarlet Witch. You know that's Wanda. You know that's Quicksilver. You know that's Pietro, right? People like you are gonna get psyched up, like, oh man, this is gonna be their version of those two. And then imagine if someone else was
Mhm.
like, I don't want to deal with those characters. So here we are. That was 10
Exactly.
years ago. Now all of a sudden people are still wondering, like, whatever happened with Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver? Like, they showed those two, and she was weird, and he's running around all over the place in his little room, and then they never showed
Yeah.
him to us, and we
Post
wouldn't have our
credit
love for
scenes
Elizabeth Olsen.
post credit scenes have to be for like the next project or a project within a year. That makes the most sense. Like Thor the Dark World shows the collector getting the reality stone, the ether thing that they give him. And it's like, all right, Guardians is next summer. That sets up who the collector is. He's going to explain Infinity Stones in that movie. Boom.
Now,
Or
with a
like you
lot
said,
of,
Winter Soldier, the twins, they show up a year later in Age of Ultron. Like that stuff makes sense.
but now at the same time, with a lot of those, because they were doing like movies every year, like they were doing movies on such a continuous basis, like a lot of those movies were already written, if not like, okay, so let's say they filmed Winter Soldier, right? They're in the process of filming. They write Winter Soldier. They start pre-production. I don't know how long the process takes. I can imagine they're at least maybe starting the writing or the pre-production on whatever's following it because they're coming
Actually,
out like a year apart.
what would usually happen, Casey, is that they would not write the post credit scenes for the movie. And a
Mm-hmm.
lot of times what they would do is they'd come up with it afterwards. So like while they're in post of like Winter Soldier or whatever, they would be like, "Oh, and then we can like tease the twins," and they're already filming Age of Ultron, so they would get Joss Whedon to film that scene, and then they would just send it over to the people, the Russos, who would then stick it at the end of Winter Soldier before it comes out. So like it would be that's how it kind of was. But what we were starting to get was these post credit scenes started becoming teases for the characters of the movies they're in. and we
Yeah.
started getting 3 to 4 years between appearances, and now it's like, who knows when this thing gets paid off, and
Who was
that is the
who was
biggest
it
issue.
they showed at the end of Doctor Strange? Charlize Theron's character.
Yeah, she's oh, what's her name? She's a character in Doctor Strange comics. I'm blanking on her. I think it's
But that's
Clea.
but
Clea. Clea.
that was what, 2021?
2022. It's only been 2 years actually,
Okay,
but
but had they even
we don't
started
have
working
Doctor
on it?
Strange 3 on the schedule. We don't have it on the schedule.
That was my point. That was my point. It was
Yes.
2022, right? I don't know if they have started work or on the writing of the next Doctor Strange, right? Or where that is in the whole creative process, because obviously these creative projects take a long time to fulfill. And Marvel, as we've talked about before, especially last time we talked, Blade had just got removed from the calendar, right? But these calendars are kind of more fluid now than they used to be previously. Used to be you could guarantee for sure there'd be one coming out Memorial Day. There'd be a Marvel movie coming out 4th of July weekend. There'd probably be one Labor Day, right? Your big movie holidays, and maybe one over the holidays or something like that. But you had like certain times where it was like, oh, right, Memorial Day, yeah, let's go ahead and pencil a Marvel movie in there, so on and so forth. But I don't know. Bottom line is, I don't know where that is. We're in the multiverse saga, but at some point that has to end. We haven't seen Doctor Strange since, have we? Since
No,
2022?
this is the other problem I have with, like, I look, and I'm somebody that likes phase 4 and 5 right now in the multiverse saga. The biggest problem we have right now are that none of these characters are really interacting with anybody. And when we have Secret Wars and Doomsday come out, it won't feel the same way Infinity War and Endgame felt, because we had had time with Cap and Iron Man in Avengers. Then they were teamed
Oh
up in
yeah,
Avengers Age of Ultron. Then they were in Civil War. Then they were in Infinity War. And like, it was a story that these characters were
with
constantly appearing.
with Civil War, we got Black Panther, right? So that
Yes.
kind
Yep.
of that had his interactions there, and then got him his own movie. But like you said, we had all these other characters who were starting to pop up in other movies and give us those interactions, and they could develop that chemistry with each other, and the crowd could start to feed off of that. Like I said, we haven't seen Doctor. We haven't even heard of has even Doctor Strange hasn't been mentioned. I don't believe since Multiverse of Madness. I know
No. Yeah, he
Wong
has
has,
not.
but Wong was in She-Hulk, right? Was he in anything
He
else?
She-Hulk was after, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah,
No, he's not been any. Oh, well, Wong's kind of been the connective tissue this saga, because he was in Shang-Chi, and then he was in She-Hulk, and then he was in Spider-Man No Way Home, right? He was in Spider-Man No Way Home, and he was in Doctor Strange. So he's been in like 4 or 5 projects, Wong, but he's, you know,
Wait,
some of the other
wait,
characters have
which came out last? Was it Spider Man or was it Multiverse of Madness?
Multiverse of Madness came out last. Yeah.
Okay, because I was gonna say I forgot we had Doctor Strange in Multiverse in Spider Man, so that's why I was like, okay, which one? Like, I know
Yeah, so
they were
there was a little bit of connectivity right there, but then since then we haven't had, we only had one movie this year. But even the movies that are being held for next year don't really feature, like, we're getting Captain America 4. He has not been seen since 2021 when he was in his show.
Falcon and Winter
Like,
Soldier. Yeah,
yeah, we're getting a long gap here, and then hopefully, like a shorter gap. He should appear in the Avengers movies, and that's cool. So there are still ways for them to set up people and put them in there and stuff, but I'm just happy that there was no tags at the end of this show. It didn't need them. It was self-contained. Show me that stuff when you have it figured out, instead
yeah.
of throwing it in there.
Here's the thing. Like I said, they only could have went with the two tags I said, either Tommy or Wanda, and the only way they could do that is if they know, like Jack Schaefer was working on whatever project next. Like maybe she's gonna take a 6 month break or whatever, relax, chill out, and then she's gonna get back to work on the Search for Tommy or the Scarlet Witch movie, right? But like she would have to know that for sure. Like, okay, I am definitely work. Like her and Marvel have to know for sure. Like, hey, you're going right into this directly next. But if they don't know that, if they haven't negotiated that, if they haven't come up with a story, any of that, yeah, there's no reason to throw something on there because who knows what's going to come from
And so far, she says she has nothing upcoming anywhere right now. So,
it. In all fairness, even if she did, she might not be able to say anything yet. Like,
right, right.
you know, it might be either in the really early stages or, you know,
That's what I think. Like, let's say they do the spin off of this, I could see it being like early enough where she's not fully attached. And it's just like, well, maybe if it goes well, I'll get back. And the show's going well, and they're going to probably nail it out, hopefully, in the
maybe,
next
yeah,
few
maybe she's starting to come
months.
up with like the bones of a story. Like, okay, we're gonna pick up, right after, if she did like, okay, we pick up literally right after this and where they would go, and this is the arc I'd see it take, right? Like
Right,
basically
right.
like her elevator pitch, like, okay, this is what I would do if I were to go to before anything even gets written down and so on and so forth. I don't
All right, well, that'll wrap us up here. I just want to cover that post-credit scene stuff because I thought that was an interesting topic, and how it was actually Marvel's decision not to put one in this show. And I think going forward, you may not see them in the shows, which
see.
I
I,
think is
I
fine.
in all fairness, I never thought of that, and I always wondered how that worked. And I'm glad you brought that up because I never, it never occurred to me about the whole post credit scene thing.
Yeah,
And then until you just explained it, like what happened with Wanda and Peter, like I didn't know that they had said, they had Joss Whedon film it while he was doing Age of Ultron, and then hey, you just get this, So who comes up with the story idea? Is that either the brothers, the Russo brothers, came up with the idea of what they wanted in the post credit scene, or was it Joss Whedon that?
and look, I may be wrong if Josh shot it or not, but that's sometimes how it's worked. I know in other movies in this it has worked. So if somebody's going to come in and be like, "You were actually wrong on that," whatever. But like, I didn't look it up, but that's how some of those were filmed. Would be like this, like James Gunn's mentioned, he shot tags for other people when he's filming his projects, whatever.
Yeah, I
It's
think I think I remember reading that. Like he said, he did a someone had Stan Lee, so they were able to shoot like his last two or
yes,
three things. Like they
yeah,
didn't realize it was literally going to be his last couple of things,
right. But
but
they were
they
like, "We'll
know
knock these
Stanley.
out at once to make it
They
easier
knew
on
he was getting
Stan."
up in
Yeah,
age, and they like it. They weren't going to have a lot of time with him in general. I think I explained this before, um, where I got to meet him at an event once, and someone had asked him about that, and he's like, "Hey, Marvel comes and contact my people. They say, hey, what days are you available in the next couple of months or whatever?" They give them a list, and then they're like, hey, are you willing to go shoot Wednesday, November 25th or whatever, right?
mm-hmm,
And
mm-hmm.
then, so yeah, and then that probably is where it's like, okay, what do we need with Stan Lee? Because we got him for a couple of days. So
Right.
anything we're going to use him for the next couple of years, let's try and knock these out all at once. And unfortunately, like that did end up being his last couple of things that James Gunn shot because he did pass away not too long after.
Yeah. So that's how it works typically. So I believe it's probably a consensus with like the Marvel story group, like Kevin Feige and stuff. Who's like, what do we want to tease? And then like they have somebody write it real quick. Somebody write it, and then they have whoever's available shoot it, and then they put it in there. Or it could be Joss maybe being like, hey, we got Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver. Why don't we tease them in a movie that's releasing soon? We're on the set filming it, and they write it real quick or something and get it done. But typically, it's not like the screenwriter themselves who's writing it. Jax mentioned she's written a couple. She has touched up
Yeah,
on certain scripts, so she may have thrown a tag in that got filmed, or she wrote some for WandaVision probably because they did some stuff like that. Um, but yeah, so that'll wrap us up today. And our WandaVision coverage is done. So what's coming up? Well, Marvel just released a whole thing of what's coming up this upcoming year. Uh, What If season 3 is dropping in December. I'm probably going to try to get Jack back on for that since he did seasons 1 and 2. And we'll just probably discuss all of season 3 at once. I think they're dropping it all at once. So we'll probably just do that. And then January is Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man, the cartoon that's coming out. I don't know how I'm covering that yet. We'll do something for it. And then, of course, Daredevil comes back in March with Daredevil Born Again. And then we have in February, Captain America, Brave New World. We got a lot of stuff coming
What
up
is
here on the
Wonder
show.
Man? What is Wonder Man? Who is
Wonder
this guy?
Man, he at some point was a love interest for Wanda, I believe. He is. I'm not too familiar with Wonder Man, but from what I've seen, I don't even know if they're doing it the same way as what the comics did. The trailer kind of showed him more as like being an actor playing the role of Wonder Man. So I don't know how they're going, like what exactly they're doing in that regard. But Wonder Man is also a hero in the Marvel universe. He usually has beef with Vision, I believe, who's not around right now. But anyway, so Wonder Man's coming up at December of next year. So we got a while till that drops. And Zombies, the Marvel Zombie show, is going to be the October show next year. All that and more in 2025. So we'll take a little break from this show. I do have some stuff that's going to be dropping. The Venom 3 coverage with Ron and Chris is going to be dropping later this week, I believe. Our Marvel comic book hero super suits draft is going to be dropping later this week. And then, of course, a little bit of a break as we build up to What If in December. So we'll probably just be covering news stuff on this show going forward. You can contact us at all of the social medias that are in the links below or in the links and description of your podcatcher. Have a great rest of your week, and we will catch you next time.